Hey everybody, Questwise here, and we are back again today. I apologize. This is a video that's been sort of long overdue. I've had a lot of people asking me when we were going to recap on this, but we had some setbacks, and I decided to change up the way I was going to do this particular video. So I'm talking about the Rifts community campaign thing. We had some difficulties with keeping it community oriented and focused, and thus I decided to just tell you how I prepare a Rifts campaign when I'm going to run one. So as usual, we're going to be using Rifts Ultimate Edition, and for this video, this particular campaign creation, I'm going to use just this book, okay? And the reason I do that is because when I sit down to create a Rifts campaign, I always kind of compare Rifts to Pathfinder first edition, okay? And the fact that there are so many options that you need to sort of narrow your focus and what the kind of story you want to tell as a group, what kind of a narrative that you want to create as your group during gameplay. And this, you must sort of focus down a little bit on what story you want to tell. So what I do is, if I have a group in mind, if I have a group of players who are excited and want to do this, I will sit down with them. Our initial meeting, our initial session will be just sitting down. Session 0 will be us just sitting down and talking about what sort of theme we want to carry out in the story we want to tell for this particular campaign. So we'll decide whether or not, and which we did in some of the previous videos, we narrow it down. Where do we want the game to take place? Do we want it to take place in North America? And that's a great thing about Rifts, is it's such a wide, there's so much lore and there's so much stuff there, and there's such a wide variety of world books out there and campaign books that you can decide sort of where you want the setting to take place. Do you want it to be in North America? And within North America, do you want it to be a sort of like, an entire continent spanning campaign, or do you want it to be a very narrowly focused? Do you want it to just be in Chi-Town, or do you want it to just be in, Lone Star? Whatever it is that you kind of want to narrow it down to. But you can also choose to play in Rifts Japan, Rifts England, Rifts Australia. There's a wide variety of different places that this can take place. So the first thing I want to do with my group is decide where I want this to be focused at. What region do I want the game to take place in? If I don't have a group, then it's kind of up to me. I get to decide what it is that I want to sort of focus on when it comes to the game region itself, the setting itself. The next thing I want to do is I want to talk to the players about what they want to play. What power level are we talking here? Are we talking, like giant, giant robotic battle suits? Do we want to do glitter boys? Do we want to do, that type of a campaign? Very, very high-powered, over-the-top action. Do we want to do a more fantasy-focused type of an idea? Do we want to have more magic users and psionics and stuff in the game as opposed to more technology? Do we want a nice blend of both? So we decide on kind of sort of like what character stock we're talking about, kind of type of thing, and what power level we want to be at. Do we want to go down to more of like a city rat type of a thing, where maybe you're playing psychers who are trying to evade, or magic users trying to evade the coalition, or psychers, or psychers trying to infiltrate the coalition type things, like maybe in a Chi-Town type of a setting. Then I want to set the limits. Once we've decided what kind of an idea of where we want to play and what kind of level we want to play, then I'll set the limits for them. I'll say, okay, here's where we want to cap this. I want to use maybe just, like I said for the beginning of this video, we want to use just the core book. Or we want to use just a core book and say the England World book, if that's where we're going to be taking place and stuff at. So I'll sort of set the limits on like our power level. Here's the character classes that you can choose from. Here's the different OCCs or RCCs or whatever that we can. Here's our block. Here's what we're gonna pick from. And then I'll sit down with them during that same session, and we'll talk about character creation. Character creation session is one of my favorites if you have a group, because it then gives me an idea of what they want to play and what they're looking for in a game. Because during character creation, when players are creating their characters, they come up with a lot of table talk, right? They'll talk back and forth about like whether or not their characters know each other, or where this character came from, or what their ideas behind this character, why they're creating this type of character. And as they're doing so, I'm taking notes. As a game master, I'm sitting down and listening to them talk, and I'm taking notes on things like character quirks, or I'm talking about, or taking notes on, okay, sorry, big truck going by apparently. And talking about like their character backgrounds, and this is giving me adventure seeds this whole time, right? Taking note of all this stuff. I'm taking note of their characters' names so that I can, throw this stuff at them during the game sessions when they happen. After that, after we set the limits, after we create characters, I come back home and I sit down with all my notes and I create the first scenario. Now, this is purely the way I like to game master. And I do this with every game that I play, whether it be Rifts or any other game system out there. Once I have the information I need to create a scenario, I create the first scenario. And when I say create scenario, I don't flesh out entire adventures. Again, it's purely my style of the way I like to GM, and it works for me. And this is a great thing about role-playing games, is that there's such a wide variety of how to play the game and how people prefer to play the game. Do you want to play it very combat-oriented? Do you want to be murder hobos? Do you want to do that kind of stuff? Do you want to be more of a narrative type thing where you roll less dice and it's all about sort of like describing the scenario? And the great thing about role-playing games is that any of those are correct. All of those are correct, right? It's purely down to the way the group wants to play. And I've played in a variety of different groups over my entire career of being a game master and a player. And none of them are wrong. All of them are the correct way to play. Because if you're having fun, it's all about entertainment. If everybody's being entertained, then you're doing the game right. So what I do, and the way my personal style of game mastering is that I take those ideas and I come up with a scenario. Okay, I come up with a beginning idea of where this is going to take place. I come up with several different sort of seeds of adventure, things that I kind of want to explore, things that I think that the characters want to explore as well too. And so I frame that first scene. I frame that sort of idea of what it is that I'm going to sort of like set up the encounter for them for. And then I let the players, once our first session starts, we set that whole idea, that whole scene into motion, and then I let the characters sort of direct the action. Because what I've found over the years of playing is that no matter how finely detailed you create an adventure, the players will always do something different than what you've anticipated. So you spent hours sort of filling out these adventure ideas and these dungeons, and you've created all this great sort of like, this really well detailed coalition idea of like, this is going to happen after this and this and this. And the players will always take a different approach in it. And I love that about role-playing games. I love that collaborative storytelling idea. And so when I create scenarios, what I do is I just give myself a basic framework of ideas, and then we kind of go with the flow, right? It's a very impromptu kind of thing. And then I build the future encounters, the future scenarios off of those ideas. So all of my future ideas come from what the characters have done, what the players have directed their characters to do in previous sessions. And so my campaign really grows from their ideas, what direction that they want to take it. Because in my idea of being a game master, it's really about entertainment. It's about what the players want what they want to see and what they want to have happen. Because my idea of running a Rifts campaign is that, or again, any role-playing game, is that we want entertainment as a group. There are things that I want to see happen, and that's kind of where we narrow down the focus at the beginning. I'll give them an idea, but like, hey, here's kind of storyline I kind of want to go with. If you're happy with that, let's go with it. But because role-playing games are such an evolving type of a storytelling experience, your initial ideas are going to change over time. And I've seen this numerous times, especially with Rifts, because there's such a wide variety of things out there to explore that you can't encapsulate them all into one sort of campaign. But the initial idea might change drastically from what I anticipated the end result to be. And that's okay. That's great. And to me, that's exciting because I am getting that sort of like player experience through running the game as well too. Right? I'm seeing how the story is evolving, and I'm seeing how the thing sort of takes twists and turns that I had never anticipated. And I think that's always the great aspect of like a great novel as well too, right? Because I always sort of compare when I'm introducing new people to the game, to Rifts itself. I always try to explain to them that it's sort of like we're imagine yourself being an author, right? And you're setting up the scene, you're setting up the tone of the story itself. But the characters in the story are the ones that are actually like the players are controlling the characters, and they're deciding what their dialogue is going to be and what direction, what actions those characters are going to be taking in that story. And so when I'm reading a novel, fiction, I want to have that same experience. I want to see twists and turns happen that I never anticipated. Right? That is a good sign, or a sign of a good author. And so when you're playing a role-playing game where you're all sort of being collaborative authors, that's the exciting part to me to running a game as well too, is to seeing how these twists and turns happen that I didn't anticipate. And then at the end, those are the stories that you're going to remember. It's not going to be, Dave rolled a 1 and the whole plan failed or whatever. The things that the players and the game masters are going to remember and tell stories about years down the road are the cool twists and turns and the weird things that happened during your game. So there's a little peek at how I set up and run a Rifts campaign. I'm sorry. I know a lot of you are excited about the community creation event, but it just didn't pan out. It didn't work, and it's not something I really want to get into the video so much itself. But if you'd like to talk about it, I'd love to talk to you privately about it. But I just decided that I was going to set up and tell you how I set up a campaign and the steps that I take to make those things kind of happen. So until next time, I'm Questwise. We're out.